Evening, ladies and gentlemen, dear parents, and one and all. We are so happy you could join us for this webinar on fostering well-being and staying resilient during COVID times. The year 2020 with COVID had changed our lives unexpectedly. We have faced many challenges and gone through difficult times. Each of us have fought our own battles, pushed through, and made it to the greener side. Today's webinar will help us gain insight into how we can continue to stay positive on the greener side. So, before we begin, let's invoke God's presence with a short prayer. I request Mr. Kevin Simon to lead us in a meaningful prayer.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we want to thank you for being with us all through this time of uncertainty and protecting us all through last year. We also remember and pray for those who have lost so much because of this pandemic. And we pray, Father, that you be with them and you help them rebuild. We seek your blessings over this webinar, and we humbly ask you to bless today's speaker as she shares with us her knowledge and experiences. Open our minds that we may absorb this invaluable knowledge and thereby put it into practice. We ask all of this in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Kevin. I now invite Father Sunil Fernandez, the principal of our institution, to address the participants and say a few words.
Dear students, staff, parents, alumni, and well-wishers, a very warm welcome to all of you at today's webinar on fostering well-being and staying resilient during COVID times. Today's seminar is especially relevant because although the vaccine is being rolled out, life continues to be on hold for most people. Our lives continue to be in flux. How then do we stay strong mentally and emotionally? What are the ways to stay productive and content? To answer these and other questions, we have a very eminent speaker today who will talk to us about our mental well-being and share with us ways to be resilient in these times of the pandemic. Hearty welcome to you, Dr. Shailaja Shastri. Thank you for accepting our invitation. I am sure that all of us will greatly benefit from this webinar, and it will help us in our way forward. The renowned Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Hope is important because it makes the present moment less difficult to bear." The effects of the lockdown, be it financial, medical, or emotional, have to be dealt with, and we need to move ahead with hope and lots of positivity. Thank you and have an enriching webinar.
Thank you, Father, for sharing your valuable thoughts, your relentless support and concern of the well-being for all. Before we move on to the main segment of the webinar, I request Mrs. Shanida Nasser to introduce the speaker for this evening.
Our speaker today, Dr. Shailaja Shastri, has been a teacher, trainer, researcher, counselor, and an ardent advocate for the cause of mental health and education. Currently, she is the founder director of Training and Research Initiatives, a psychological solutions company and mental health resource hub in Bangalore. Dr. Shailaja holds a master's, MPhil, and PhD degree in psychology. Formerly, she was a professor and head of the Department of Psychology at Jain University and was also the Dean of Psychology at the International Academy for Creative Teaching. Actively engaged in research, she has more than 25 publications in referred research journals. Dr. Shailaja is associated with several organizations as well. One of the areas of her specialization is parenting, and she has conducted several workshops in collaboration with schools and corporate houses. She's partnered with Open Face Media House and has brought out a series of 6 video interviews on the art of parenting millennials, which is now available on the YouTube. During COVID times, she is actively involved in conducting webinars on the topic of new normal parenting, learning crisis, positive engagement with children, etc. Dr. Shailaja continues to be an inspiring teacher and a dynamic trainer working towards the development of mental health, education, and at the grassroots level. We are honored to have her today. On behalf of all gathered here, a very hearty welcome to you, ma'am, and I request you to share your valuable inputs. Thank you.
Good evening to all. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this session. I'm truly grateful to be invited and thank you for making me a part of this enriching session. Thank you so much. And let me start by presenting my views on this topic using a PPT. I will share the PPT with you at times, and when it is not as much required, I will share it, unshare it, and then we will have a discussion. If there is any questions that you have, kindly put it on the chat box, and we will try to answer these questions towards the end of the program. So let me begin by sharing the screen. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have had as we have experienced this pandemic is to stay strong, is to model behaviors for our children so that they learn from us how to stay strong, how to stay resilient. And it must have been a tough time for all of us because coronavirus has changed our world and has changed our worldviews too. I think right from the beginning, when the lockdown happened and we knew what we were heading to, I have been talking to people around me and asking them to share their experiences with me. I have, talked to even my parents and my grandmother. My father, my grandmother is 93, 94 years old. And she also tells me that nothing like this has ever happened in her lifetime. So you can imagine what an unprecedented situation we have experienced and we are still experiencing. Many parents have come and shared an interesting thought in the last few months. They've been telling me, "Ma'am, I think I now know what I want for my child much better than what I knew before the pandemic. I think my, you know, uh, worldview for my child has changed. What I expect from my child has changed." So, having said that, I let us look at how this pandemic has changed our world and how we need to stay strong and how we need to benchmark certain behaviors of ours so that we role model them to our children. Why this is important? I have been telling the parents. Number one, when our children lead their lives, let's say 30 or 40 years from now, they are going to remember this as a significant experience of their life. And they are going to tell us or tell people around them at that point of time and they're going to share that this is what my mother did. This is what my father did. This is how we handled the situation. And the way we behave as parents is going to give them a standard of behavior on how to handle crisis. So therefore, role modeling resilient behavior, role modeling strength is important so that our children learn it from us. So friends, how do we uh, engage them in this way? I know one of the hardest thing right now, or the most interesting thing, how we depends on how we look at it, is that our children are with us at home. They should have been in school. They should have been in the larger social context of being with their friends, with their teachers, and learning at school. Because of the pandemic, the school has shifted, and it is now located in the virtual world and from the context of home. So what happened is the parents, all of us, have to double up as teachers too. There is supervision for teaching that we have to do. So there is a blurring of professional and personal spaces for many of us, because I'm located in my home, yet I have to engage myself professionally. There is also monitoring of my children that I have to do, and their learning. So the spaces that were otherwise clear cut and divided has been blurred, and therefore the challenge is how to maintain myself at this point of time. Let me go back to my uh, PPT. So, in this context, friends, when our children are at home, the challenge is we need to provide to our children what otherwise the school was also providing. So, there has to be a physical engagement, there has to be a social engagement, there has to be a intellectual engagement, there also has to be a spiritual engagement with our children. And if you see in this slide, the larger context of these engagements that we have with our child is in a box, or is in um, a context of emotional stability. That means we need to emotionally be stable if we have to demonstrate certain behaviors that are benchmarks for them, and also engage with them in a productive way, which helps them to develop their intellectual, spiritual, social, and physical uh, context. So let me take you, to help you understand this better, let me take you to a picture. Can you see this picture? Now, parents, can I request you to put in the chat box, what are you seeing? Some of you may have seen it in the social media. If you can open your chat boxes and tell me what are the things that you can see. What is it that you can see right now? If you cannot, many people would tell that, oh, it is a meteorite falling. I see the picture of a meteorite falling. Or there is something that is hanging up in the sky. There is something that is shooting down. There is a stone that shouldn't be there, and I am confused. I don't know what I'm seeing. So these could be the reactions that you see. I want you to now watch the picture very carefully. Please watch the screen very carefully. It's very interesting, isn't it? This is very interesting, isn't it? Many of you may now feel, that is a stone which is jutting out of in a stream of water. Oh, by flipping the picture, I understand it much more clearly. Why am I showing this little picture to you, and why did I flip it over? To deal with the crisis of the pandemic, we need to sometimes change the perception of how we view this pandemic. Our well-being and our resilience is embedded in the way we perceive the pandemic. And that's something that I want to share with you using this analogy of this picture. By flipping over and by changing the way we look at that picture, there is greater clarity. So, friends, using this as an analogy, let me put this screen up. Let me tell you how we perceive situations. Situations, my dear friends, are not good and bad. Situations are not good or bad, they are just situations. Our response to these situations, to the situation that we are experiencing, is manifested in a behavior. For example, let me put it in a simple way. I may think that my child has to undergo a series of examination at the end of this academic year. That is the reality. Oh, my child, despite being a part of the pandemic, has to take the board exams, and that's the situation. That is the current reality. Now, how will I demonstrate it through my behavior? That is the response. And that response or that behavior is a product, an output of how we process our thoughts and emotions. So as I told you, my friends, the situation is not good or bad. My behavior is a product of how I think about that situation and what associated emotions I have about those thoughts. For example, if I think that my child's performance is important for me, if I have to call myself successful, that means, in other words, that I'm a successful parent if my child gets 90%. If that is my thought, then the emotions that are entangled with that are different from the emotions that are entangled if I think that, whatever my child's performance is, it's not linked to my thought. It's not linked to my success as a parent. It is two different issues. So if I think like that, my emotions are much more confident and I'm much more regulated in my emotions. Suppose I think that, oh no, my child has to get 90 and my success is embedded in that, then I will be more worked up. I'll be more anxious about how my child will answer the examination post pandemic, and that will impact my behavior. In other words, if I connect it to this situation, the current situation is a pandemic. I can't change the situation, but I can change the way I think about it and what emotions are associated with it. I can think that this pandemic gave me an opportunity to spend 1 year with my child. That's awesome. Then my emotions are very positive. and my behavior would be much more positively engaging with the child. So, friends, situations cannot be changed. There is no situation, good or bad, but how I respond to the situation depends on my thoughts and the emotions. And I just want to add one point here. If I can compare these emotions to that of a large elephant, you know how a large elephant can be very powerful. And imagine this large elephant goes, runs amok. And when does an elephant run amok? When the mahout is not able to, control that elephant. A very clever mahout, a very smart mahout, will be able to control this large, powerful elephant effectively. And in this case, the thought is the mahout. So if I have very realistic and rational thoughts, then I can manage and control my emotions. Otherwise, the emotions can run amok. So one of the things that we need to watch out for our well-being is what are my thoughts and what are my views about the current pandemic situation and the situation at home. Therefore, my friends, I take you back to that little picture that was there that I had put of the stone. What we need to flip over is we need to flip over our thoughts. We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. Just to summarize what I'm saying. So, friends, one of the most important things that we need to keep in mind at this point of time is to be mindful about what are our thoughts and what are our views that are operating. So we need to strengthen our thoughts and our views so that we can keep our emotions under regulations and regulated. Do you remember that little elephant and mahout analogy that I gave you? So let us strengthen our thought processes and keep it more positive. By doing so, we are moving towards a positive well-being and also being staying resilient. So let me go back to my screen right now. Okay. The first thing, so there are 3 or 4, 5 points that I would like to share in this context. The importance of reframing. Reframing and changing our language. This, my dear friends, is very important as a first point that I want to uh, talk to you about. You know, there are many times we use certain words when in our everyday language, which actually, uh, you know, uh, channelizes our thoughts in our emotions and our behaviors in particular ways. If I keep saying I'm stuck at home, you know, I can't do anything, I can't even go outside, how are we talking to ourselves? So, what is happening to the Mahut? The Mahut is getting negative. Oh, I cannot see my friends at all. You know, this is an almost a year. I cannot see them. I cannot meet my family. It's very challenging for me. Now, by using these language, can you imagine what is happening to that Mahut, the thought process? In what direction am I channelizing the emotions? It is going to take a spin towards the negative side. Now, when I say reframing, it is what I connected to the earlier point, the stone, the flipping of the picture. If I reframe these words and change it to, I'm safe at home. I'm not stuck at home, but I'm safe at home. How does this sound? What is happening to that Mahut, the thought Mahut? the thought Mahut is now gaining control. So my emotions are much more regulated. Okay, I am not stuck at home, but I'm safe at home. Let's see the next one. My friends and I are protecting each other. It's not that we cannot see. We are communicating with each other. We are seeing each other virtually, but we are protecting each other. Now, if I change my language, if I reframe my language, it's so much more easier now for me to handle my emotions, and that keeps me stronger. I become much more resilient, and when I'm resilient, I'm much more uh, psychologically in the positive side. My well-being is in a better shape. Having said that, a lot of parents keep asking me about the learning crisis that we are facing right now. There is a lot of challenges in learning right now. Our children have lost that context of learning, the grandness of school, the being with their friends. That's missing, and it's very difficult for them to learn in the absence of a social context. Teachers are trying hard, students are trying hard to learn. You parents are also trying hard to give them a context of learning and ensuring that they are learning. In that context, I want to highlight an important aspect in which we have to reframe. I want to highlight these two words: learning versus studying. I just want you to take a minute and reflect on that. Learning versus studying. Do you think there is a difference in these two words? Kindly reflect on it. Many a times when I tell parents about these two words, interesting thoughts come in. Often it is said that studying, madam, is for examinations. Studying is very, very uh, simplified. It is maybe rote learning. But the word learning has a larger bandwidth. Learning indicates in that it can be, much more deeper engagement, not just limited to examination, maybe for life itself. So, right now, what our children are going through is a difficult, challenging uh, experience, and distinguishing between studying and learning becomes crucial for us as parents, because this picture explains it. I want you to remember that studying is for examination, but learning is for life itself. This distinction we have to make today to be more resilient and to help our children to be more resilient. Because, friends, there is a learning crisis that is happening. Our children are not learning as they were learning in schools, as they were learning being in a classroom with their teacher. It's a strange thing to look into the computer and listen and learn in the absence of a social context. So, my dear parents, what I want to very clearly help you understand, please make the distinction between studying and learning. Studying may be diluted right now, but learning need not be diluted. They may not learn content as much as we wanted them to, content, but the spirit of learning, The curiosity of learning, the joy of learning is something that we need to right now nurture. They may be drop in their grades, they may be drop in their learning amount, quantity, but the quality of learning need not be dropped. So kindly focus on making learning fun and make helping them understand that learning is for life, need not be only for the examinations. And this distinction, this rewiring has to happen in our heads first, so that we can communicate this message to them. So this is the first point of reframing. The second point that I want to uh, discuss with you is the importance of having a daily routine. uh, in the context of school and for their well-being and for them to be resilient, one of the important things that our students, our children need to have is a daily routine. Very many times I have seen that there is an absence of routine. uh, in the context of the reframing, I want to link reframing to this. Many a times I've heard children or parents talking that, oh, this is vacation. This is not a vacation. This is regular learning happening at home. Therefore, they need to have a routine. It's very important that you set up this routine for our children. I can understand that when they are not feeling well, they may on Sundays we can drop those routines, but then ensure that they get up in the morning and they are dressed up, they have their breakfast, they are dressed up in school uniform and sit to learn. When we provide them with that kind of environment, or when we push them to maintain this routine, they're not going to like it. When we push them, there is feeling much more motivated to learn and feeling more inspired to learn, rather than getting up in the morning at 9 o'clock and then running to the computer and logging into my class without even brushing the teeth or having a breakfast. I've seen that happening. Kindly be a little more strict to them with them about having a routine. This is absolutely important for them to feel that they are part of a school culture. And that's something that we are going to have a serious crisis when we bring back our children to school. When they all come back, one of the things that we need to, as in school, that we are going to be over prepared for is to bring back those routines, because routine helps us to be organized and helps us to be positively motivated. So that's the second point that I wanted to share, that having a routine is very good for our well-being. Let me go to the next point that I wanted to share with you. The third point is about well-being. What is important for well-being? I just want you to read this. Enjoy the little things in life, for someday we will realize that they were actually the big things. I think pandemic has taught us this very significantly. Pandemic has taught us how we can live a life of by pulling back on the grandness of life itself. We still can exist very, very harmoniously, very peacefully. And that's the benchmark that our children have learned. In fact, I'm so glad that we have had this experience, because the millennial generation had uh, or were experiencing and were given things too easily, too soon, too much, too easily, too soon. Now pandemic flipped that experience, and pegged them into a spot, pegged all of us into a spot, and still helped us understand that we can enjoy life without experiencing all the other grandness that we had post pandemic, pre pandemic times. So I think this is well being is deeply connected to enjoying the simplicity of life. I think cooking together, you must have seen, or you please think of the ways in which you spend time together with your family. It was wonderful to figure out new ways of staying active within the boundaries of our home. We still are not back into our life or as we were before, and still we are figuring it out how to remain connected. In this context, I also want to highlight the importance of staying connected with our relations, in a relation, maintaining our relationships. Well-being is deeply connected to the quality of relationship we have with the people around us. And I think pandemic has trained us in that we have found who are those people who add value to our lives, and our children are watching that. Who are those people we were wanting to connect, and we figured out ways to connect. It could be our friends, it could be our family, it could be our parents, it could be anybody, and we found out a way virtually to connect to them, telephonically to connect to them. And when things started becoming better, we created those little safe bubbles and we moved in that space. That, my dear parents, is important. The investment into these meaningful relationships, I think pandemic has given us a clue as to who are those people who are important in our lives. And we have distinguished between people who add value to our lives and who can be kept aside. And investing and you know emphasizing these relationships, meaningful relationships, are those simple joys in life that makes us resilient and, more important, contributes to our psychological well-being. So let us talk to our children about this. Let us showcase to our children that this is what is important in their lives too, especially in the future when the pandemic rolls back. We all have our vaccinations, and when we are safe, what we take away with us is the importance of meaningful relationships in our life and how it is absolutely necessary for us to keep this going. The next important point that I want to share before two more points before I close. This is for all parents, and something please remember that we can do all this when we have a more regulated form of emotions, when we stay calm. And to help you understand this, I'm going to put this picture. I am sure you have, it reminds you of traveling on flights, taking flights. Do you remember this? Yes. I think the pandemic sometimes has made this travel so distant for us. And I just want you to look at this picture. There's something that I want to share with you. When we get into this aircraft to travel, there is an instruction that is given to us, which is very interesting instruction, and it is And it contradicts all those instructions that we have been told in our everyday life, in our so-called normal lives. And what is that instruction? The air hostess or the the steward tells us that in case of emergency, in case of a crisis, the oxygen mask is going to fall down. Please wear your oxygen mask first before you help your children too, or before you help anybody else. My dear friends, I want you to think of this. It's a very, very, very interesting uh, uh, statement. All throughout our lives, we have been told, take care of your family first, take care of your children first. It is important you take care of your family. You come next. But when you sit in an aircraft, you get it just the opposite way. It is said that in the time of crisis, wear your oxygen mask first. My dear friends, right now we are going through a crisis. It's an emergency. It's a difficult situation. It is important that we stay safe by oxygenating ourselves first. This is very important. And what does this mean? I'm talking of self care. Take care of yourselves first. When you take care of yourselves and you have enough oxygen, you can take care of your children and your family effectively. If I don't take care of myself, how can I nurture others? So, to nurture myself first, and self care is not selfish, and it is very, very, very crucial for our well being and to stay resilient, because we need to protect ourselves. Only then we can protect our family. So, my dear friends, kindly do things that helps you get your oxygen in your life. What does it mean? Do things that energizes you. It can be for 15 minutes, it can be for half an hour, but take that time off. Do whatever inspires you, oxygenates you. What is it? It could be music, it could be dance, it could be chanting, it could be prayers, it could be watching a movie, it could be going for a walk, it could be some physical exercises. Do something that acts as your oxygen. And when you are, you know, nurtured, you nurture yourself, you can take care of your family. This is a strong message that I want to leave all of you with. And finally, the last point I want to share with you is through a PowerPoint. Uh, and it's a final point that I want to share with all of you. And just give me a minute. I'm going to put that slide up and we will watch this together. You may have watched this PPT earlier on social media, but pretend that you have never ever watched it and enjoy it once more. For people who have not watched this, let's watch this video. I mean, it's a PPT. It just takes around 2 minutes, 2 minute only. So let me share it with you. Just give me a moment. Just give me a moment. Can you all see it now? Can somebody tell me whether you're able to see it?
We're able to see the screen you're sharing, Doctor.
Okay, okay, okay. Just give me a minute. Okay, can you see it now? I think now you can see it.
Yes, ma'am, we can see it now.
Okay, this is the story of four candles, and let's watch it. I'm going to change the slides very slowly so that you can read the text that is written there too. Here we go. I think that is the message for all of us. Resilience and well being during the pandemic times is anchored in hope. And that's what Father Sunil Fernandez also said in his, reminded us in his speech. Let us nurture this hope and let us stay resilient. Let us set a benchmark for for our children on behaviors that can help them cope with difficult times in their life in the future. And that responsibility is on us as parents, as adults, in this difficult times. Remember, our children are with us, and we need to role model behaviors that will help them to remember us in a positive note, stating that this is how my dad handled the situation. This is how my mother handled the situation. And because of what they have taught me, I am strong today. This is what we want our children to speak about us. Thank you very much. We can take the questions right now.
Thank you, Dr. Shailaja Shastri, for the
Thank you.
insightful information on how to adapt, adjust, and accomplish staying positive and resilient. I would now like to hand over the next segment of this webinar, question and answer time to Mrs. Gauri Mirle Achanda. The webinar poster was published on the school groups, and students and parents were asked to post questions to some of us. So we have received a number of questions, and Gauri ma'am has selected them. And now I request her to ask the questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dr. Shastri. As always, a pleasure to listen to you. I remember being completely fascinated by your talks when you came to school for our parenting sessions.
Thank you
And
so
today,
much.
also starting with that beautiful picture of the stone, completely flipped upside down, told us how to look at the whole uneasy aspect of the pandemic, look at it, flip it the other way, and right down to the last beautiful story of the candles. You have had us all fascinated, and you've had us thinking. So we've had a lot of questions coming in. I've just filtered a few, and very, I think, predictable concerns of parents as usual. So here's the first one. There's a question from a parent saying, how do I motivate my child given that he's not happy with online learning? That's the first question.
None of us are happy with online learning. You ask the teachers, you ask the school managements, you ask the parents, you ask the students. This is not how students should be learning. That is why I emphasized on helping ourselves to rewire how we look at learning right now. What we don't like is studying the content, memorizing certain, the context of biology or mathematics or any sciences or social sciences. I, as a parent, have a huge responsibility of nurturing their ability to learn. So help your child distinguish between studying, which is definitely not liked by any one of us, but inspiring them to learn about life itself. So your conversations at home, your engagement with children will tell them that content, yes, is difficult right now, but the spirit of learning should continue. And that's something message that needs to go to our students. They may be drop in the content, but not a drop in the spirit of learning. So what they're doing with you is much more important. How you talk to them is very important. Please empathize with what they are going through. Listen to them about their difficulty. Listen more and speak less. Validate their frustration. That's very important. Rather than giving them correctional and directions and advices, just empathize and validate what they are going through. They're really frustrated. I think that should help them manage their frustrations better. Gauri?
Thank you, Doctor. I think that was a very, very insightful difference that you made between studying and learning, which is really helpful. The second question is, it says it's from another parent who says, my son is unable to connect to online learning. So what is it that he can do? I think parent means to say he's just not able to learn that way. So is there anything that he could do?
Please empathize with our children. How did they learn for the first 10 years or 12 years in their life? What was the context of learning? They were in the grandness of the classroom. There were people all around them. The teacher was right in front of them, and the teacher would engage the students then and there, and teacher could decipher how the child has learned through nonverbal cues. The raised eyebrows of the student would tell the teacher, this child has understood or not understood, and she or he would change the modalities. Now please understand, all those wonderful context is missing. children are finding it difficult. So again, I am emphasizing that when they come and talk to you, please don't add to their burden by telling them probably you can do this, do that, giving our advices. I think it's important at this point of time to listen to them and help them to understand that keep going. Yes, it is difficult. Yes, it is a, a tough time, but I think you're strong enough to sustain your capacity to learn. Engage with them, talk to them, and in a way that we don't add to the stress. Now, again and again, if we keep telling, have you studied? Oh, you're not able to study. Oh, you are not doing it. Concentrate. You listen to that. If you keep pushing them negatively, if you talk to them on a negative note, then that's going to add to their frustration. It's time that we empathize. We see how difficult it is, and we help them sustain their interest in learning. What worries me is the interest of our children is dropping right now, and we need to do something about it. Talk to them about the entire experience of pandemic from a positive viewpoint. Talk to them about the future when they go back to schools. Talk to them about the larger goals that they have in life. It's where they want to reach in their life, professionally, personally. That would give them a long term context and help them to manage this little difficulty or a tough phase that we are facing. Talk to them how you are managing your feelings. Talk to them about the difficulty that you are having in your office and how you are being solution oriented. That's something that will help them to contextualize the challenge that they are going through. One important thing is listen more, talk less, empathize more, and understand their challenges.
I think, Doctor, not only have you answered the question about children not being able to learn online, you answered the question and the big problem for us teachers also. We were
Oh,
not able to
yes.
teach online. So we
Yes,
faced the
yes.
same frustrations of not being able to see their faces, connect, no clue
Yeah,
if they're paying
yeah.
attention. So you answered both sides of the coin, and you did it brilliantly. Thank you so much.
You're
We
welcome.
come to our last question. There were quite a few, Doctor, but because of paucity of time, we have filtered it and kind of collated. So this is the last question it is. And it's again something which every family has faced. There's a parent asking, how do I balance family time with screen time? Given that now earlier screen time was highly monitored by parents, and now that's become legitimate. I mean, they are going to screen for everything anyway.
Yeah.
So how do we wean them off, and how do we manage that family time? How do we get them basically wean them off the gadgets? That's what the
Yeah.
parents asking.
Yeah. I think this is a important question a lot of parents keep asking me. I'll answer it from two contexts. Number one, screen time largely is used for, or technology, we use it for three purposes. Number one, communication, entertainment, and information. So, entertainment is important, information is important, and that's how they are learning today. And communication is with our family. We have stayed connected through technology with our families and our friends. So, these three channels are important. These three uses of screen or technology is important. Uh, when we help them understand and use this, then we need to distinguish between, this is my second point, use, overuse, and abuse. So we need to use, children need to use this, we need to use this gadgets for the three important aspects that I shared with you with. I shared the three pointers to you. Well, what we need to be mindful is to distinguish between use and overuse. yes, there seems to be a overuse because we have become heavily dependent in the absence of physical, moving around. We are heavily dependent on that. So there is a overuse. So in this context, having a routine becomes very important. So when they are in a school routine, yes, they are using it. And when they are out of the school routine, ensure that they use this less technology, screen time, less for entertainment, convert that time to a family time with all of us together, and taking away the need for any screen time for entertainment. So engaging our children with, playing a game together, a board game together, or having an antakshari together, or reading something, depending on what you want, or exercising together. I've seen families exercise together. So that is converting that use, the overuse, cutting down on the overuse. Of course, abuse is being heavily dependent on it. That is bordering to addiction. I'm not dealing with that. But at this point of time, they are all, please understand, they are already using it for their school purposes. They are already using it to stay connected with their family and friends. The entertainment component of use of technology is somewhere we need to mindfully channelize it to family engagement, and not using screen time for that. This is something that I can point out. So we have to be mindful as to how much we are using. And let us, for the first, important thing is, let us not overuse and be dependent on technology or screen time at this point of time. Because if we are overusing it, then we have lost the moral right to tell our children do not use it. So we need to be careful, we need to be mindful, and place a check on how they utilize it, convert that overuse to uh, uh, and limit it to using it effectively for these three purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. I think that was very important. And the last bit that you said, that parents take care. We lead by example, also something tricky,
Yeah.
because we are guilty of overusing that as well. Thank you so much, Doctor. And back to Lydia.
Thank you, Gauri ma'am. We have now come to the end of this webinar, and I request Mr. Suvish Sundaram to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Lydia. Gratitude can transform common days into Thanksgivings, turn routine jobs into joy, and change ordinary opportunities into blessings. With that, on behalf of St. Joseph's Boys High School, I thank Dr. Shailaja Shastri for an enriching session. I believe that what she shared will be of help to us all. I thank our principal, Father Sunil Fernandez, for his support and for giving us a platform to have this webinar. I thank our primary administrator, Father Joel. Our gratitude to our Vice Principal, Uday Kumar Sir, for his constant encouragement. Our heartfelt thanks to our technical staff for making sure everything went on well. Thank you, dear parents and students, and all of the viewers. Stay safe and take care of yourself. Thank you.